The clock is ticking on the New York Giants negotiation windows with Saquon Barkley. What is the latest? Where do things stand? Where will things lead to? And will this get done by the Monday deadline? I'm going to talk about all that on this special edition of the Locked On Giants podcast coming your way next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to a special edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Chain. I'm your host, and this is a special edition of the Locked On Giants podcast. As I mentioned, we've been running the New York Giants 2023 opponent previews, a series that we're going to continue through next week, but I felt the need to record a special show for you about a certain contract negotiation that is making the headlines these days, because a lot of you have written to me, those of you on the subtext community, those of you who read and follow me and listen to the program, a lot of you have said, Pat, what is going on with Saquon Barkley? What can you tell us? So I said, you know what? I'm just going to do a special show for you to answer some of that, to tell you what I know, to tell you what I think is happening or is going to happen, and to weigh out all the ramifications. So that's what we're going to cover on this special edition of the Locked On Giants podcast. And I thank you, by the way, for tuning in, making us your first listen of the day, or if watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. So we're going to start off, folks, with where things stand. Now, disclaimer here. New information seems to be coming out all of a sudden. And after no information really to speak of, new information keeps coming out. So hopefully, I have the bulk of what has happened up to this point. And, no new major piece of information will be coming out. But if we have any updates and whatnot, I could always do a quick short for you over on YouTube, which I will do. So let's talk about where things currently stand. We all know that July 17th, Monday, 4:00 is the deadline for the Giants and Saquon Barkley to get a contract done. If they do not, then Saquon's choices are obviously play on the franchise tag, which he has said he doesn't really want to do, or sit out, because for as long as he doesn't sign that franchise tag, the Giants can't fine him. But then again, it hurts Saquon, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Saquon, it was discovered and reported, has added to his contract negotiation team. Now, I caught wind of this actually yesterday. Today is Thursday. I actually caught wind of this last night, Wednesday night, that Saquon may have added to his team. So I went on the NFLPA website, and sure enough, there was another agent listed along with Kim Bialy of Rock Nation Sports. Now, here's the unusual thing about this. The agent that was added to Saquon's contract team happens to be from the same agency, CAA, that is, that represents him for marketing purposes. So the new agent is a guy by the name of Robert Berry. And what's unusual about this setup is you have two agents from different agencies handling the contract. All right. Usually, you'll see a player has multiple agents, but they all come from the same umbrella. That is not the case here with Saquon. So he's got Kim Bialy of Rock Nation Sports, who's been with him since his rookie season. And now Robert Berry has been added to the mix from CAA. So they've got two different agents repping him. Now, the timing of this, interestingly, according to Pro Football Talk, Saquon decided to add Berry to his contract team in mid-June, which, let's count back a little bit here as far as timing goes. Nothing was getting done with the Giants. The Giants revisited with Saquon. This, according to Joe Shane, who spoke to reporters after the draft, said the plan was to revisit with Saquon and see where things stood. This was, the draft was late April, so it would have been around early May, and nothing got done. Basically, it was, okay, we'll see you in July to resolve this. So fast forward to mid-June, Saquon apparently made the decision to add to his representation team because there was still that stalemate. Nothing was getting done. I don't know how much talking was going on between the two sides. I can't imagine that they were talking every day. I mean, that really doesn't happen in any negotiation, but how frequently they were talking, I can't say, obviously, because I'm not there. So mid-June, Saquon decides to add this gentleman to his team. This, I believe, happened right around the time the Giants were wrapping up their mandatory minicamp. And good thing, because again, going backwards, after the mandatory minicamp, the coaches and the front office people, they were getting ready for, to wrap up the spring program. The rookies were still around. There was some minor administrative stuff that had to be taken care of. Then the 4th of July weekend, the holiday week, actually, the Giants executive offices were closed. So if Saquon was going to make any kind of change, the time to do it was mid-June. And sure enough, that, according to Pro Football Talk, is when he made the decision to make a change, or an addition, I should say. Now, as for the dynamic as to how will work between Berry and Miali, that I don't know. But basically, it's another opinion, another voice, because the way I see it, they weren't getting close to a deal. And NFL Network's Mike Garafolo reported this week, as a matter of fact, that the two sides still weren't close. And if the progress just wasn't being made, how much could it have hurt to bring in another voice, a fresh voice with a fresh perspective to take a look at things and maybe give some ideas to maybe move this thing closer to the finish line? So here's what else we know about, the Saquon situation. Saquon has repeatedly said he is not looking to reset the running back market. To reset it would be to make more than Christian McCaffrey's $16 million APY. He was also concerned about respect. Now, what Saquon, I don't think what it was clear with Saquon, the respect had to come from the Giants. And, for those who haven't picked up on it, Saquon, I think, is the type of guy who really cares about what the Giants think of him. And, one of the things I suspected happened somewhere along the line between, mid-June and maybe now is I would not be surprised if either Joe Shane and or John Mara picked up the phone to call Saquon to tell him, look, this is where things are at. This is what we can do. This is what we can't do. How about we, put our heads together and let's get this done. The Giants, remember, did that for Daniel Jones, who, is an important player to them. If you're going to do that for Daniel Jones and show him that kind of respect, wouldn't it make sense to do the same thing for Saquon Barkley? So I firmly believe, and I don't have confirmation that this took place, but just kind of reading the tea leaves, I would not be surprised if that conversation did take place. So anyway, as I mentioned, Mike Garafolo of NFL Network said that the two sides are not close yet, but they continue to work towards a deal. Now, just as I was getting ready to tape this podcast, the New York Post came out with a report that the Giants offered a contract with $19.5 million guaranteed money, which, by the way, is under the $22.1 million guaranteed minimum that will probably get a deal done. And that $22.1 million minimum, folks, is the estimated sum of the franchise tag for running backs this year and next year. So basically nothing less than $22.1 million is going to get it done. Now, what the Post report didn't tell us is that guaranteed money guaranteed at signing or fully guaranteed? There is a difference. Let me explain the difference to you. Guaranteed at signing basically means once Saquon puts his name to the paper, the Giants hand him a check. Here's your money, guaranteed. Fully guaranteed means that no matter what happens over the life of the contract, you're going to get that money. All right. So let's use Kenny Galladay as an example, because that's something that comes to mind. Kenny Galladay had a fully guaranteed roster bonus this year. And I don't remember what the amount was, but I know it drove up his dead money hit. So regardless if Kenny Galladay was on the Giants roster, because that bonus was fully guaranteed, he was paid that roster bonus. So wasn't really good business sense, but that's just an illustration of the difference between guaranteed and fully guaranteed. All right. So it's two different things. And that's what we don't know. Those are the little details we don't know that it sure would help if we knew, but we probably will not find that out until the deal is signed and filed with the NFLPA. So basically, there is still an impasse, but here's the thing, Saquon's been working out, and we're going to talk about in the next segment, where will all this lead to? We'll talk about also, will it get done? But the agent, adding the extra agent to the mix, I think is a big, big step forward in the right direction. Because, look, I saw on Twitter, a few people were like, well, aren't they adding too many cooks to the kitchen? Well, folks, if we're going to use that analogy, could we maybe say that the cook that was in the kitchen was burning the pot roast or whatever entree you want to select? And that maybe this new cook that's coming into the kitchen will move things along and get the entree from the kitchen to the table, so to speak. So I don't see the addition of the new agent as a bad thing. I see it as a good thing. And, we'll see if it gets done. And if it does, great on everybody. And if it doesn't, well, we'll talk about that in just a bit. But that is where things currently stand as of Thursday afternoon, about 4:30-ish when I'm recording this, with Saquon Barkley. Just so you know, in case anything new pops up between the time you're watching this and the news breaking. All right. So coming up, folks, I'm going to talk about where is this all going to potentially lead to, and then will it get done? So these are the burning questions that still need to be answered, and we will talk about those right after this. Hey, Giant fans, if you are looking for some pants and shorts that offer a good fit, are made of high quality materials, and just make you look good, then you got to check out Bird Dogs. They fit way better than regular shorts made of a stiff, restricting cotton. And Bird Dogs uses a special fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long, regardless of what the mercury says on the thermometer. My husband has a pair of Bird Dog shorts on. He's wearing them right now, as a matter of fact. Loves them. They're cool, they're comfortable, they fit, and they look good. And right now, when you place an order for your own pair of Bird Dogs, they will throw in absolutely free this Yeti-style tumbler. So go on today, check them out, birddogs.com/lockedonnfl to get your free gift. Again, that's birddogs.com/lockedonnfl for your free Yeti-style tumbler. Check out those Bird Dogs, folks. You won't want to take them off. We promise you. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast, special edition of the podcast, the Saquon Barkley edition. And no, we don't have a contract signed yet, so we're not going to talk about that just yet. But just so you know, folks, on Monday, I will do a show following that 4:00 deadline. So whether he signs or whether he doesn't sign, I will have a reaction show for you on Monday. Also coming up next week on the Locked On Giants podcast, we're going to continue our look at the Giants' 2023 opponents. We have a few left that we have to do. Nick Filato is going to be on the program with me as we break down the Giants' offense and defense, question marks, changes, so forth, ahead of training camp. So we're going to start pivoting towards training camp, get you ready. Nick was on the show with me. Actually, he taped 2 shows with me. So we're going to run those 2 shows for you as part of next week's programming. So I hope you will check all that out. All right, Giant fans, let's get back to the topic at hand, and that's Saquon Barkley. So we had the timeline, a rough timeline of where things stand as of about 4:30 p.m. on Thursday, July 13th. Where is this all headed? Very simple. One of two ways. Either he signs a deal, reports to camp, talks about, how how it all came together, his feelings, all the good stuff. Everybody's happy, happily ever after. If the deal does not get done, however, we've got to talk about that. What will happen? Now, ESPN's Diana Rossini basically, I think, reported that if a deal does not get done, Saquon, who has been very vocal, by the way, about his displeasure about getting that franchise tag, there was a report by Diana Rossini of ESPN that Saquon might not show up, not only for training camp, but might not be ready in time for week 1 of the NFL season. I don't believe that. So let me tell you what I believe and why in the event that Saquon does not get a multi-year deal from the Giants. First off, if he does not get a multi-year deal from the Giants, Saquon, in my opinion, is going to skip most of training camp. I don't think we will see him at all during training camp. Now, it's a mild form of protest because at that point, what good is it going to serve? It's not like, oh, I'm going to hold my breath until my face turns blue and until, you give me what I want. Because at that point, the Giants can't. Negotiations are done for this year if a deal is not done by July 17th at 4:00 p.m. Eastern. But what Saquon can do is he can stay away and continue to express his displeasure. All right. And will it become a distraction for the team? It could, but I don't think it will because, look, the players, they're going to be coached on what to say and what not to say. Brian Dable is not going to say anything. I don't think the other coaches are going to say much about it. So I don't think the Giants will allow it to become a distraction, if I'm being honest with you. So as far as Barkley potentially missing week 1 and beyond of the season, I don't see that happening either. All right. For 2 reasons. Number 1, for every game he would miss, he's going to lose about $545,000 in salary. You don't want to be doing that. I know 10.1 million is not enough for him, and that's fine. He has a right to seek what he wants. But does anybody really think Saquon, who, by the way, is an intelligent young man, is going to throw away that kind of money? I don't. And especially, knowing how much Saquon loves the game, knowing how much he loves being with his teammates, how he's a team captain, how, he's so loved by the fans. I just don't see Saquon sitting out any part of the season. Training camp, yes. And even with that aspect, folks, sitting out training camp, which would be a form of protest, which again is not going to change anything at that point, there's a danger to that. And here's what that danger is. People say, oh, Saquon would get a better workout working out on his own. Perhaps because, now he's not locked into following any CBA rules governing the length of workouts or the intensity or any of that stuff. But here's the concern I would have with him skipping training camp and continuing to work out on his own. Unless he has some kind of GPS tracking device, unless he has somebody who is taking meticulous notes on his workouts, what he's doing, there's always that danger of overtraining so that when he finally does report to the Giants, how worn out is he going to be? I mean, you can overtrain. People will say, oh, that's not going to, don't worry about it. That's not going to happen. Folks, I covered a player a few years ago. I won't tell you who he was, but I'll tell you he was a defensive player. And he was often injured. Wonderful talent, but couldn't stay on the field. Why couldn't he stay on the field? Because early on in his career, and he told me this, and I said to him, gee, did you overtrain? And he admitted he had, but he told me he was doing three-hour workouts a day, one in the morning, one at midday, and one in the evening. All right. With workouts, now I'm not a sports scientist, I'm not a personal trainer, but from what I understand with workouts, you get in one solid workout and then you let your body recover. So there would be some concern, I would think, unless Saquon is pacing himself. And again, I'm not privy to the type of workout he does, but I would think the Giants would want to have a good idea of what he has been doing so that when he comes in, they know exactly where to start him off. Otherwise, they have to start him off at the bottom and ramp him up. And how does that help anybody? So that's the concern for me, because if a guy has overtrained and then he comes into camp and, they adjust the level and then they ramp him up again, I call it the rubber band effect. You stretch the rubber band, and then now you bring it back and then you stretch it again, and you run the risk of the rubber band snapping. Same thing with soft tissue injuries. So that would be the concern. And by the way, if Saquon were to get hurt to where he missed any time, guess what, folks? That's going to hurt his earning potential for next year. So I'm not so sure sitting out training camp would be the smartest thing to do, because again, some of you are going to say, well, he doesn't need to play in training camp. He doesn't need to play scrimmages or preseason. No, he doesn't. But see, here's the beauty about training camp. The coaches can control the reps. The coaches can control who is playing in the preseason games. The starters are probably not going to play a whole lot in the preseason games anyway, whether it's Saquon, Daniel Jones, Dexter Lawrence, you name it. So that argument, you could throw that one out the window. It's the reps. It's getting, your body acclimated to football action, getting hit by teammates, getting used to wearing the pads. That's a big thing, because you look at the training that, the training videos that Saquon posts. Is he really working out in full pads, full football gear? It's not. And there's a difference, because now you're carrying a lot of extra weight that you wouldn't be carrying if you're just running around without a shirt and just shorts on. So that's where missing training camp as a form of protest, that's where there's a danger, and where I would be concerned. All right. So that being said, I could see that happening if Saquon doesn't get the deal that he's looking for. Again, it doesn't solve anything, but, it also shows from Saquon's perspective that he's not going to be this passive little thing that says, oh, okay, you know what? We tried to get a good deal. So I might as well just sign the franchise tag and, come in and keep my mouth closed. I don't see that happening for Saquon either. So there's a sense of pride. And that's why I think if a deal isn't done, Saquon will go that route, even though I personally don't agree with it, because look, everybody at that point will know he's got to sign the tag or he's got to sit out. And if you sit out, life goes on without you, my friend. And, I just don't think that's wise. I don't think Saquon will do that. Signing the tag also, I'll mention this about the tag. Assuming Saquon's contract demands are not out of this world, the reason why you don't want him playing on that tag, if you're Saquon's side, is if he gets injured again during the season, now potentially his earning value goes down. All right. So if God forbid Saquon does have to play on the tag and he rips up his knee, God forbid, knock on wood, that's it. He's not getting a contract the following year. So I can understand where Saquon is coming from. That's why we got to keep our fingers crossed, ladies and gentlemen, that a deal gets done. I think it will. We'll talk a little bit more about it in the next segment. I'll tell you, some other aspects about the situation, why I think it will get done. and what I think the money will be. So that's coming up right after this. Hey, Giant fans, our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a fantasy draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you with players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So with draft prep underway for the upcoming fantasy season, Vinny's eBay's guaranteed fit fantasy pick of the week is 49ers running back Christian McCaffrey. That's right. If we're talking running backs, why not go with Christian McCaffrey? A healthy McCaffrey is guaranteed to see well more than 300 touches again in his first full season in San Francisco. McCaffrey is the centerpiece of that 49ers offense's engine with his elite quick running style that's made for their zone blocking scheme and his dynamic receiving skills for a diverse passing game. Even before he was traded to the 49ers last season, McCaffrey was putting up RB1 overall numbers with the Panthers back in the day when he was featured in a dual role. The 49ers, regardless of who's starting at quarterback this season, are probably going to lean on McCaffrey a lot to be their primary pass catcher and red zone option. And the best part of drafting McCaffrey is that he's not game script dependent. He'll be involved in closing out many victories and helping the 49ers play catch up in a few other games. McCaffrey checks all the boxes, including his talent and usage, high floor and ceiling. So go on and run with McCaffrey as the guaranteed fit at number one for a smooth ride to yet another year of big fantasy numbers. And Giant fans, speaking of smooth rides and perfect fits, eBay Motors can guarantee the perfect fit for your vehicle. With eBay's guaranteed fit in over 122 million parts and accessories for your vehicle right at your fingertips, you can make sure that your ride stays running smoothly. Air filters, brakes, batteries, taillights, alternators, shocks, struts, you name it, eBay Motors has it. And they'll make sure that it's the right fit for your car because eBay's guaranteed fit helps you to understand exactly what part you need for your vehicle the first time. So go for it, switch gears, crank up your AC, and say goodbye to sweating if your ride needs a little fixing up, because now you'll know that you'll always be set up for success from the get-go. With eBay's guaranteed fit, everything your vehicle needs is just a click away. For the parts and accessories that fit your vehicle, just look for the green check. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride, Giant fans. eBay's guaranteed fit is only available to U.S. customers on eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and we are talking Saquon Barkley. Because, hey, haven't we talked enough about Saquon Barkley? I guess not, right? Actually, to be fair, I haven't done a show in a while about Saquon Barkley. Haven't really been doing a solo show lately, but I felt the need to do an extra one for you, even though we have scheduled for Friday our continued look at the Giants' 2023 opponents. The Eagles are on deck. Currently on Thursday, we have the Packers. So I hope you'll check those shows out, as well as the other shows that I did with the Locked On hosts who came on to talk about their respective teams. So hope you will check that out. Let's get back to Saquon Barkley here. So the big multi-million-dollar question, will a new deal get done? Will Saquon get what he's looking for? I think the answer to the first question is yes, a deal will get done. Will it be what Saquon's looking for? Probably not, because look, who really gets what they're looking for in a contract negotiation? Not a whole lot of people. But here's why I think the deal will get done. Saquon, as I mentioned, is not a stupid man. He's a very smart, intelligent guy. To play on the franchise tag, to me, would just be a huge, huge risk for him. Given his injury history, given, the violence of the game, the short shelf life of the position, if he gets hurt, that's it. His earning potential for next year goes down the tubes. That's too big of a risk here. If he plays on the tag, on the advice of the agent that says, okay, you know what? Come next year, the chances of the Giants tagging you again are slim to none because they've got to do Xavier McKinney and they got to do Leonard Williams and they might want to do Andrew Thomas, so they won't tag you. You can't predict that, because coming out of last year, it was like, oh, they have to do Daniel Jones, which was a big contract. And Daniel Jones got done in time. So who's to say that the Giants, and let's take Xavier McKinney, for example. The Giants have been building up some goodwill with Xavier McKinney. They didn't, dock him when he had that non-football injury that landed him on the NFI list for the back end of the season last year. They didn't fine him. They didn't discipline him. They basically bent over backwards with McKinney. Probably, because they like the kid, but more importantly, to build up goodwill for when the contract negotiation comes up. So if you're Saquon's side of the coin here, you can't bank on the fact that, oh, well, the Giants are going to use the franchise tag on, Leonard Williams or Xavier McKinney. You don't know that. So what can the Giants do then? Well, they could come up with an agreement, an amendment to the franchise tag where they say, okay, Saquon, you come in, you sign the tag, and we promise not to franchise you next year. I don't see the Giants doing that. Saquon, on the other hand, given the history, again, isn't it better to take double the amount of guaranteed money? Which, remember, I mentioned at the top of the show, about $22.1 million has to be the minimum of guaranteed money. And to define it, I would say guaranteed at signing. I would say, $22.1 million, which is the sum of the two franchise tags. Now, is that guaranteed or fully guaranteed? I would say make that fully guaranteed. So that would include the signing bonus and, maybe the first year's base salary and maybe the second year's base salary. So I'm thinking for Saquon, maybe they do a 4-year deal, but with 1 year at least voidable and all the guaranteed money up front in the first 2 years. And then maybe year 3, throw in some incentives because, by that point, Saquon will be getting up there in age. He'll have more mileage on his tires. So maybe, just maybe, you can get away with not having any guaranteed money there should you want to get out of the deal after 2 years. Kind of like what they're doing with Daniel Jones, where they can get out of the deal after 2 years as opposed to 3. Yes, they'll take a big money hit with the dead money, but they can still get out of it nonetheless. Because remember, the cap is going to go up. So the bottom line with Saquon is, folks, barring an injury, he will be on the field for the team this year. I firmly believe he will be on the field week 1. I get where Saquon's coming from. He's upset. He's probably frustrated that this deal hasn't been done yet. I get all that. And sometimes when you're upset and frustrated, you say stuff that, it just comes out of your mouth. I get that. But the bottom line is, Saquon is an important part of this Giants team. The Giants have repeatedly, from John Mara to Brandon Brown to Joe Shane to Brian Dable to the teammates, they have all spoken about the respect for Saquon. They have all spoken about how much they want him in Giants blue. John Mara constantly saying, we want this guy as a Giant for life. So the respect is there, folks. Now, people will say money talks and BS walks. True. But at the end of the day, both sides are going to have to give a little. The Giants, if this report by the Post of the Giants only offering $19.5 million guaranteed, and again, we don't know if that's fully guaranteed or guaranteed at signing. If that report is accurate, Giants are going to have to raise the ante a little bit. If the reports of Saquon wanting Christian McCaffrey money are accurate, which Saquon has said is not the case, but let's say it is, he's going to have to come down. The two sides are going to have to meet in the middle. And I do think they will, because there's a lot riding on this. I think at the end of the day, yes, there might be some bruised feelings on Saquon's part, but dude, you know, that's business. Nobody said it was going to be a bed of roses. Nobody said it was going to go smoothly. And, at the end of the day, just come in, take a deal that's within the range of the other running backs, because the market has gone down for running backs, and just do your thing. Maybe take a shorter deal. And if you continue to outplay that deal, maybe as I suspect will be the case with Daniel Jones, the Giants will turn around and say, you know what, Saquon, it's 2 years. You've outplayed this deal. We're going to rip it up. We're going to give you a better deal. Because teams can do that, by the way. Just because you sign a contract doesn't mean that's it. You're done for however long that contract runs. So we'll see how it all works out. The deadline again is 4:00 on Monday, July 17th. So the plan here on the Locked On Giants podcast, I will do a reaction show after the deadline passes and I get some more information. Now, if Saquon signs a contract, I'll probably do a short, because I want to get the entire contract to, look at the details and how it's broken down so that I can speak more intelligently about it. So otherwise, if the deal doesn't get done, we'll have a reaction show and we'll just keep rolling. In addition to, getting you ready for training camp, which will start, the following week. And also continuing our remaining look at the remaining opponents on the Giants 2023 schedule. So that's everything we have coming up for you on the Locked On Giants podcast. And that will do it for this special edition of Locked On Giants. Again, Giant fans, thank you for tuning in. Special shout out to my everydayers and my newcomers and everybody in between. Love you all. Make sure you check out the show notes for details on the subtext community. You will want to be a part of that, folks, because if something breaks, that's how I'm going to get the word out as soon as I hear something to you guys, until I can get on and record and edit a show for you. So check that out. Free 14-day trial. Cancel if you don't like it. If you like it, $4.99 a month. Thereafter, it helps supports the Locked On Giants podcast. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for me. Make sure, again, you stay here. We have the Eagles preview is coming up on Friday. And go back if you've missed the last week or two of Locked On Giants podcast. Check them out. We've had different Locked On hosts talking about their team. So do check it out. Otherwise, Giant fans, I will see you next week, hopefully with some good news about Saquon Barkley. Have a great one, everybody.